we had a test flight, and here's the aftermath. Yeah, not good. It took off fine. I did, let's see, most of one circuit, and then coming back, going in the direction of the takeoff, all of a sudden it just went into a very rapid roll, which couldn't be controlled, and buried itself in the ground. If there's anything good about it, it's that while the wing broke, it didn't actually totally sever. So it would seem that something that we did was okay in terms of the repair anyway. Did the same thing as far as busting out the bit out of the fuselage. And of course this time with a nose-in dive into the ground, yeah, we got some problems. I might mention that I've always felt bad for the tail gunner. Yeah, they cop it all, don't they? You know, pilot, he walks out of the plane, you know, walks through all of the the rubble, and poor tail gunner, you know, he's in pieces. So, what we need is a black box to tell us exactly what happened, and unfortunately we don't have that. Just thinking about the repair of this. I don't know if it's quite in the hopeless category, pretty close to it. We've got the clean break in the middle of the fuselage, and then we got this bit that takes us up to the firewall. We've got one side that we got most of the pieces for. The other side is pretty well splintered, but we could see on the opposite side what's there to be able to build it if we really wanted to. This time, instead of that left fairing bit, this bit here, instead of that being off, okay, well here's this. This is the bulk of that side there. Yeah, the cockpit area is totally in bits and pieces. So whether this is a wintertime project or just too hard to do anything, that remains to be seen. Well, let's see if we can work out anything about what went wrong here. We note we flew for about 1 minute 14 seconds. So I was thinking that maybe I just done one circuit, but maybe it was a second circuit to be a whole minute and a quarter. That seems like more than just 3/4 of a circuit, so it might have been 1 3/4 of a circuit. So it was flying for a bit. I've disconnected the motor, and I've got the transmitter plugged in. The ailerons, which, you know, the thing went into a very fast roll, and, you know, I couldn't recover from it. And it dove down into the ground. But as I look at the ailerons, you know, the one over there is off a bit. That could be due to the crash. The arm isn't bent. Oh, sorry, that's the flap. Okay, that's the flap. So that one there is just simply come out from the hinge. So that flap, that's due to the crash. Aileron out there, everything is connected up. Let's see if we can get this balanced again. Okay, everything is connected up there. Everything connected up here. They look like they're straight. And as I work the controls, they're working. Hitting the flap over there, but that's natural because that flap is pulled out, so it's getting in the way there. So the big question is, did something happen with the radio, or was there some sort of brain fade on my part? I did note that when I was flying, it was very sensitive to aileron control. It really rolled very easily, and it was going pretty fast. So maybe with it coming back towards me, there's a possibility that there's a brain fade, and instead of straightening it up by using right aileron, maybe I gave it a tiny bit of left aileron, and that sent it into a fast roll, and then, you know, I just didn't recover from it. Or, you know, there wasn't a beep from the transmitter. This transmitter, if you lose connection with the receiver, so let's say we unplug the throttle here. Okay. I don't know if you heard that, but I got a vibration and a little bit of a tone. I probably wouldn't hear the tone out there, but I think I would have felt the vibration, where it tells me that it's, you know, disconnected. So I didn't feel anything like that. So maybe it was just pilot error. I mean, I'm not immune from such things. Today with the Ranger up there, I had, I don't know, probably 6 picture perfect landings, and then where there was a wind change, and so I had to go around, land the other direction, which wasn't my typical direction that I'm landing in with the prevailing winds. And, you know, I landed it fine, didn't do any damage, but it was a really squirrely landing. So I'm not beyond having a brain fade and having a problem. But certainly if this was a brain fade, it was a very expensive one. Not that I paid a lot of money for the plane, but I just put so much work into restoring this, and it took off beautifully, and it was flying, you know. So anyway, we'll put that one down to experience. I suppose we ought to look at just a few structural things as we look at things here. And let's first off turn off our transmitter. Okay, went in nose first, dug a pretty decent hole into the ground. You note that I had the motor offset with these bolts. It's actually good that they folded like that. That takes some of the stress off of the motor itself and the motor mounts. That's not a bad thing that those things folded over like that. Still managed to destroy totally the firewall. And of course, with a balsa plane, you go nose first into the ground. You can expect, especially this type of construction where you've got just very thin balsa sheathing on it on the outside. And I guess these are little plywood sort of formers. So yeah, you expect that to happen. We had a lot of stuff in the cockpit area, which of course added a lot of weight to the plane, but had a lot of nice detail. Other than it being really messed up, I don't know that there's anything to observe there. Of course, it didn't hit on the landing gear, it hit the nose. The landing gear are all in place. Going into the nose, you would expect something to happen to the wings. I've taken the wing, and I figure it's shot, so there's no repairing it. But I took it over my knee and whacked it to break it. And this is the one where I put in the barbecue skewers. So I had 3 inside of this rib here, and then I had that one that just went in by itself. So the barbecue skewers have actually held. So you've got this reinforced spar, or not really a spar, but this joining segment here that is still intact. The barbecue and the skewer in there. And this is the former that has been glued on with a Gorilla Glue. And so that is held. So it broke loose all of the weaker set of bits. but not the parts that we had glued. So I think what that is telling me is that idea of putting small either dowels or, I use the barbecue skewers, but it could be carbon rods, but some small things into something like that and gluing it together, that's going to hold. And then the only other question is whether this was adequate for support for the wing. But, hey, when you nose a plane into the ground, you expect it to break. So, nothing wrong with that. As far as their other repairs went, of course, this is the one that wasn't broken before. And that one actually held as far as the thing goes. But, yeah, our repair job actually held a little bit better than the original. And so I was pleased with that. Tail section is all intact, so I'm trying to think of something creative to do with that. Maybe a piece of artwork. One thing to have a look at when you have a crash like this is what's happened to the battery. And you can see we've got some physical damage to the battery. This is right up front, and it took a lot of a hit. So that is not a safe battery to use. So unfortunately, it's going to get discharged and then sent to the battery recycling thing, going through our procedure for doing such things. So check out that video if you're not sure about what's involved with that. But basically, I guess what I'm saying is that in terms of the video on the repair that we did on the plane, everything pretty well did what it was supposed to do. The big question is, do we have a problem with a Fly Sky radio, or do we have a problem with RC Jim? So anyway, we'll have to check out the black box recorder, don't we? Yeah, find out what the tower was telling the pilot. I got to thinking about our crash and the causes of the crash, and after having basically completed the video, an additional thought struck me. It wasn't a plane, it was a thought that struck me. Okay, we got one flap that was made out of the die flaps that's perfectly intact and everything is fine. And we've got one flap that had partly broken loose, and it was on an angle, and because it was on an angle, it had given it a deflection, okay? And that's how we found it when it was crashed. Now, I had assumed that that happened during the crash, but the question that I have is that as you think about that flap up there, what forces are involved in the crash? In the crash, they could break something loose. Okay, got the plane hitting nose first, burying itself into the ground. As that stops, then the wing is wanting to keep on going, and so there's forces, to pull this apart going that way, forces into the ground. All of the damage along here, you can see that there's such a twisting effect on that. It's popped the leading edge in several different places. But what was there that would cause this flap to be pulled away? And certainly not the initial crash. The only possibility, as far as the crash is concerned for that failure, is that if something on the plane, say, it hit, this broke loose, and this struck, something struck this, or it struck something up here at the top, pushing it out and forcing it up the way it was. But what if, since these hinges are so dodgy, I just pulled this thing, well, first off, in the aftermath, it was already pulled loose on two of the hinges, without me doing anything. And then it was real easy for me to pull off the third one. There wasn't much of anything holding those things on there. What if, say it hit a gust of wind or something, and just you know, pulled it out enough to give it a control surface of deflection, and that caused the thing to start to roll and roll so rapidly. Pretty decent sized flap. You know, you think basically the fuselage comes to about here, and you got all of this flap. You got aileron out on the end. Flap has got holes in it, but it's still a pretty big surface. So anyway, I still don't know, and I don't know if that's the reason, but I'm just saying that there is one more possibility as to what happened. So I'd like to know what your opinion is. What do you think is the most likely reason for the crash of this beautiful SBD Dive Bomber? So anyway, this is RC Jim signing off, and I hope that you have a better day than I had today.